Right, hey up everybody, welcome back. This is now episode 3 of the Yorkshire Fitness Podcast. If you happen to have listened to us first 2 already, I hope you enjoyed them. A bit of an introduction to us all, I think, firstly, and then we kind of followed up on that subject in a second episode. And just really hope that you actually gained something from them. We had quite a bit of feedback from us members. Elm, we forgot to tell you actually that loads of feedback from, just saying didn't realise this, little bits that they might have taken little snippets out of things. So quite good feedback really for such early days. So fingers crossed, we're kind of going to hit some points that people will be able to take things from, which is what we're all about, wasn't it? Like I think you hit nail it, isn't it? Like taking the science a little bit, but bringing it from the gym to the gym floor, or vice versa. From the gym, like bringing things back from the gym floor, what's going on in the real world, to give us more things to discuss. So so that's it. So we're into episode 3 now. We're going to talk today about as habits really define us, don't they? They are what we all do every day without even thinking about it. It's like them old things. Sometimes you drive somewhere and you don't even know how you've got there just through habit. That's the, certain habits. There's just loads of things, isn't there? Good habits, bad habits. If you've got into a bit of a bad cycle and you are trying to break it, it's really tough. There's just loads of different points and the different key things you need to work on to try and break them. There's set times in there, I know, that you need to put your new practices in place and continuously do them, basically. That's what I mean. So that's what we're going to go into a little bit. We're going to delve a bit deeper today into habits, good and bad, how to make changes, and then hopefully we'll be able to continue this in future episodes to give more pointers on how people can actually get out of the crap habits and bring some good ones. All right? Does that sound all right, you two?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's crack on then.
February is the key month to talk about this. And I think February is important because everybody starts off January all gun-ho going, I'm going to lose weight, get fit. Like the gyms are wash with people out. Everybody's like, after Christmas, we'll all go to the gym. We're going to run 10K. These are all the things I'm going to go and do. And then February comes around and all that New Year enthusiasm has gone. And is that what's left? As what we talked about just before we start recording is, well, what happens when you run out of enthusiasm, when you run out of motivation, when your self-discipline finally starts to let go and you revert back to your November version of yourself? And all those reasons why you wanted to lose weight or wanted to run a 10K come flooding back, and you've kind of gone, right, what do I do now? Because I can't keep being this disciplined and I can't keep that level of motivation. So how do the successful people, other people who continue to keep weight off or stay fit, why are they so different from the majority of people? And I guess you guys see that more clear than I do from in the strength and conditioning world, in the personal training world, of people that come January, they're all kind of guns blazing, and then you don't see them for months after February.
Yeah, we don't have loads here, but there's definitely an increase in there. And like you say, I think
we generally don't see an influx of new people here, but we see an increase in sessions, uptake in sessions, so people wanting to train.
Enthusiasm.
That's definitely
it's at an high point in it. So it is. So like you said, the ones who this is what we talked about, isn't it? The ones who stick to it, the ones who continue, who stay at a level, it becomes their habit, doesn't it? That's your daily. What you do every day is your habits, and that becomes who you are. Like for us, our habit, we're lucky we work within it, don't we? So so it makes you eat properly, and
that's just the ideal quote in it that we're looking at there on iPad. First, we make our habits, then our habits make us.
Yeah.
You become what you continuously do, don't you? Now, if you choose to continuously eat poor, drink too, don't exercise, you become overweight. You're not healthy. You become that. Yeah. Whereas if you are constantly exercising, watching what you eat, being careful around things, you will generally be a healthier person.
And I think that comes up with we've banged on about this a lot. With people who are more consistent. We're in all right shape. You know what I mean? There's people in better shape than us. There's people in a hell of a lot worse shape than us. And I think the reason why we've stayed something like is because we just do it consistently, don't we? It is our habits to do it, and we're just consistently. We train most days. We eat well most of the time, but that don't mean that we live. We're not bloody chicken and broccoli dieters are all like that. We eat normal food, but the majority of us food is we pick decent choices and we don't eat too much of it. So if you do that consistently, you become, it's very easy, and then it's very easy to maintain, isn't it? And I think so, yeah, so building things into people's lives and into the routines is a massive part of what we do and what we try and do for people. So
I think there's a real negative cycle that people get into and beat themselves up about it. So they start off with it with a really good intention, they've got a good plan, they've got a good idea, but it's so far removed from what they currently do, their current habits, that they can't sustain it. Like the mental energy it costs to break away from what they currently do is doomed to fail from the beginning. Like, to be disciplined to eat something that you do not want to eat at a time you don't want to eat it, to do an exercise you don't enjoy doing, that comes at a cost, that a mental cost, and that's draining. So eventually you'll stop. No matter how much success you have in that first 2, 3, 4 weeks, eventually you're going to stop. And I think people, when they start on these kind of journeys of losing weight, getting healthy, getting fitter, achieving some kind of performance goal, running a 10K, whatever that happens to be, they need to know at the outset that motivation, self-discipline just aren't the tools you need. But everybody thinks that's what you want to have. And I think kind of a lot of people get sold that. If you watch TV programs, they're going to have this self-discipline, be controlled. So like you mustn't do this, you must do this. And that's actually only going to work for 2 to 3 weeks, in my experience. And then you kind of fall off the wagon, and then you beat yourself up for falling off the wagon. And actually then that feeds into another negative spiral. And you're actually worse off than we started. And that's where these yo-yo dieters come back. Kind of go to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And that's where I think more people need to hear the message about what is a habit and why those things are important to know about. And as you rightly said there, going, what are my good habits and what are my bad habits? Because I think unless you know what those two things are, I don't think you're really in a position to really make any meaningful changes. And I know today we're not really going to talk about how to change. I think it's more we're going to talk about why habits are important and kind of recognizing what those good ones and bad ones really are.
Yeah. You've got to understand what they are. If you're trying to break a habit, if you're trying to break something, you've got to understand what it is to then address it, haven't you? If some people have got the 5 p.m. rule when they're cooking tea, they pour a glass of wine. A lot of people do that subconsciously. They're probably not even thinking. It's just, I'm cooking tea, blah, blah, blah. I'll have a little glass of wine while I'm doing it. And they probably do it. So you've got to actually go, you've got to break that cycle, haven't you? That kind of trigger is whatever they're doing, whether they're cooking, whatever it is at the time. Is it the time they're looking at? Is it the food that they're cooking? They've got to kind of understand that is a habit and it's something that they're going to have to break. And then, like I say, you've got to put a plan in place, haven't you? But so many people have these habits and they don't even understand. They don't realise they're doing them.
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose you kind of a little bit of education as well about why something's a bad habit. They won't even know they've got a habit in the first place. They won't even realise that this has become a habit because it doesn't cost you any energy. You don't think about it. It's not a decision you make anymore. It's like your brain has made it. It's going to be the back of your brain somewhere. Your brain knows that you're going to do this. You don't have to think about it. And that's how the brain works. The brain tries to make life as efficient and as easy for as it can. And that's why it creates habits. So you don't have to think about doing things all the time. So you have to kind of realize, almost like stop and analyze your whole day and go, right.
Mark, I was just going to say, like, you when you think of when people wake up, don't they? People wake up that, like, they've got different habits. Some people wake up, they go get a shower or whatever. I don't know. They brush their teeth. They just do it, don't they?
Yeah.
They get the put kettle on, they click kettle on while they're doing that. They're not thinking, are they? Whether so all these, like you said, to actually analyze your day it's just consistent habits. When I go do this, I always do this. Down to picking your phone up. You go sit down in a certain chair, you pick your phone up, or we're built on them, aren't we? It's so true. And like you say, it's recognizing the things that are useful to you and the ones that are not useful and that are holding you back. And then like we've said, how do we create new habits then? I mean, that's your big one, isn't it? That's, like breaking old, creating new is key.
Yeah. And it's working out what habits do you want Like what habits are going to be useful to you, and which habits are no longer helpful or hindering your progress. They're really useful to have in your unhealthy, unathletic lifestyle. They're really helpful for that because it helps you be unathletic and it helps you be unhealthy. How do they go? Well, what does the alternative version look like? So, like an example, if you have a cup of tea or coffee, like how many people to get a packet of biscuits out immediately, just out of routine? Just like I don't even
just
think
goes
about,
with tea, doesn't it?
I don't like some people will say I don't even enjoy having a brew unless I've got a biscuit with it. And it's like going, you don't even like want the biscuit. It's just because you're having a cup of tea. In fact, you don't even want a cup of tea. It's like it comes after something else. So you stack habits next to each other. And all of a sudden, without realizing, you've now got 5 habits all kind of aligned in a nice little row, none of which are really helping what you want to achieve. And so a lot of people actually go, well, actually, you're doomed to failure because you're so intensely working for 2 to 3 weeks on the good things, but all the habits you've already got are pulling you away from that. And when you're tight, like, I mean, I've just had a little baby, so you're down on your ass tiredness because you've got no sleep, and you literally all you're working on is your own habits. And as much as I know about health and lifestyle, all those things, I've got some shit habits. I really have, and that's what I'm kind of going back to. Why have I just eaten that? Why have I just done that? Why have I not just done this? You go, because my brain is habituated into doing these things that I don't want to do.
There's another quote here. Have you ever heard of Warren Buffett?
Yes, yeah.
Warren Buffett, quote from him: "The chains of a habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken." So I suppose that means if you've got a habit that's not really affecting you, you're not gaining masses of weight from it. It's not ruining your life. It's not causing. You're not drinking too much. It's not a habit that's really affecting your life. It's all right, innit? We carry on until something comes to light and you have to address that habit. I've got a prime example here. I was talking to this actually about annual training earlier. When I have a curry, when Kel makes a curry, we very rarely have a curry out, but when Kel makes a curry home, I have a beer before, because in my head, I think in my head, over the years of kind of probably going out when I was younger and going for curries, it were always after a few beers. So I've convinced my habit now is I have to have a beer. If Kel ever makes a curry through week, let's say on a Wednesday night, I'm like, what you made a curry tonight for? Because I'm not having a beer. I won't have time to have a beer before my curry, because generally I walk in and I tea ready. It's like, what are you doing? Why have you made a curry? And that is genuinely a habit. And at the minute, I don't really need to change it, because we're talking of maybe a beer, but generally it's on a weekend. But that is a habit that's one of them, innit? It doesn't have to be broken, because at this moment in time, it's not affecting me. If that habit became, I had to have 5 beers before a curry or 10 beers before a curry, then that's something that needs addressing, because you've got a bit of a problem then, haven't you?
Oh, you're having curry every night.
Yeah, and especially if Kel loves making curries, then I'm going to be like this. So
that's cook a week's worth of curry. Is he having curry every night?
So it's identifying the habits that need to be changed. That's what people need to work on. And we see it here. We know that the people who come here, our members, the ones who are struggling to achieve their goal, let's just simplify it, and it is a weight loss goal. The ones who cannot get into a new habit of regular exercise and regularly eating well rather than the eating out, treating themselves, they're the ones who don't get the results. They're the ones who don't hit their goals. Where the ones who buy into it and understand, yes, right, this exercise, this has to become part of my life, and they do it regular. They're eating well. We use the 80-20, 80%, 20% rule. Be good 80% of the time, 20% then. On a weekend, you know what I mean? Enjoy it. But majority of the time, you've got to be good. And the ones who engrave that into their weekly lives are the ones who get the results.
I think what you said there is really quite important as well. We look at the scale of change. I think January is a classic example where people literally try to upturn their life completely. Yeah. Right? I've gone from progressively over December being more relaxed in terms of eating and drinking more and being more social and doing basically everything that is unhealthy. That's kind of socially accepted, isn't it? Like in December, Christmas coming around the corner, eat what you want, drink what you want. It's okay, we'll deal with it in January. And then we just trying to turn our lives completely upside down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a massive change,
Right.
isn't it?
I think we wonder why kind of by February comes around, nobody's bothered anymore. It's like, because it's too big a job at a time.
Yeah, you can't just change your life in the space of a day. But think that, like I said, people they do, don't they? It's like they've gone through December, eating and drinking, partying, enjoying themselves, and then they think, right, it's dry January, I'm going to be at gym every day. So, like I say, it's a complete turnaround of lifestyle, and it's making small changes.
There's two downsides of that as well. So your first one is like you say, it's hard to stick to in it. So like a lad who started with us January, like his main goal was to lose some weight, and he was saying, "Oh, yeah, wife will cooking tea for it," but I told her all I wanted was some chicken and some veg for me. I said, "Don't change your evening meals as well. Don't have a cook." I says, "Because that ain't gonna last, is it?" I says, "You're not going that's not sustainable, is it?" I says, "Just try and sort your portions out. Maybe have whatever they're having. Just try and sort your portions out. Don't start changing too much because it doesn't last, right?" So that's your first thing. But the other thing was, when you do go and you try and change everything, if you fall off a wagon, if people feel like they fail, so they think, balls to it.
Yeah.
And they quit, don't they? So they think, well, I can't do that. So they quit. So you, like you said, it's trying to, like you say, it's too much what people do. It's just typical of today's world, isn't it? Really, it's just what everybody wants to think. Right, I need it now, so I'm going to change.
Oh, nothing.
I'm going to change everything. When really that ain't what you need to do, do you? You need to start building things in. You need to start building these new habits in that become habits, not a quick detox. You know, like all that kind of bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, we'll do a detox and then everything will be all right, and then I'll go back to living like shit. It just don't work, does it? So
I think they should, like, if you want to kind of be healthy, they need to live like an Olympic athlete and then go from like drinking every day and eating quality streets to I'm now going to be an Olympic athlete. Well, actually, that Olympic athlete didn't live like that when they were 12. It took them 10, 15, 20 years to learn and progress to living the way that they do. And as soon as they stop, they'll go back to living like a normal person. So they're this false impression of what they need to achieve. I think about they're going to calorie cut, so they're going to be tired from that. They're going to start increasing their exercise and be tired from that. And they're going to have these massive kind of lifestyle shifts where they're having to really invest a lot of mental energy in not doing the things that their habits are telling them to do. Like, no wonder you're tired. She's like, well, which bit?
he nearly swore then.
Yeah, you did actually, didn't you? Then you realise we're going to keep this a clean podcast.
The doctor
I
nearly
think I've already sworn about 10 times, so
yeah, no, but they've been small swear words that you're going to throw F-bomb in then.
It's all right for us to swear. We're not doctors. Have you noticed? I've got a question. Have you noticed that your handwriting's changed, mate, since you've got your?
No, it's always been bad. It's always been bad. So that's fine.
I noticed
bad handwriting to get on the doctor program in the first place.
Well, watching High Performance podcast that day, and he said it couldn't. We're trying to ask a question because I can't even understand my own writing at one point. We're like, what a surprise! That just comes with territory, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the message we're trying to get across is, I know we're talking about it a lot, is everybody has it. You know, like I think people probably put themselves down a little bit if they, you know, like if they think they've got habits. A lot of people. Well, everybody's got them. We've all got odd habits. I've just said I know for a fact I've got bad habits. You've said you've got bad habits, haven't you?
I don't think I've got any.
No, you're just perfect.
That's why he's got hair still.
But it's not a problem. You've just got to address it, haven't you? And I think what people need to understand is they can be changed. It's not too late. It's not like, oh well. I'm 50 now. There's no point trying to change now. It's like you can still change the habits.
What was that quote? Go on. Good in this other night, Ellen. So when were the high performance? So when is the best time to plant a tree? When was the best? And the answer is like 20 years ago. But they said, when is the next best time to plant a tree? Today. So you just got to start. But it's right, isn't it? You just think, no point now for me, but there's always a point, isn't there?
I mean, what people have got to realize as well is like, without you knowing it, your brain is always trying to create habits, because what your brain is trying to do is minimize how much time is spent just doing daily tasks, because its purpose is to try and make sure you survive and live as long as you possibly can. So he still thinks like an animal. He's not this highly evolved human that we all see and interact with. He still kind of operates like an animal. So if you walk around on a daily basis, it's thinking about what is the threat in the environment, Where am I going to eat next? What could come around the corner and kill me? And for you to do that well, it needs to not be thinking about, well, I need to do my teeth and then I need to wash my face. And then that's not what's going to keep you alive in the kind of jungle or savannah where you came from. It's going to be like, these are the things I can habituate. These are things I don't have to think about. So then I can concentrate on the threat in the environment. And even though we don't
concentrate on the big things.
Yeah, even though that isn't our world anymore, we are still involved in that process.
Yeah, we are still that person, aren't we? We're still that being.
So these habits that we all have now, even though some have been with us for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, they're still evolving. But we don't necessarily have conscious control of whether we get rid of them or whether we keep them. So when we try to take that conscious control, that's going to take a lot of effort. It is going to take some effort on our part. So we have to be kind to ourselves and go, right, I can't train and have like 5 days of training, burn myself doing that, and have 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit every day, and then invest loads of time in changing every single habit that I've got. We can maybe do one of them, or we can have a calorie deficit on a couple of days a week, and I can train a couple of days a week, and I can maybe start a new habit and maybe get rid of one habit. But again, this kind of idea of January where we just kind of completely upturn our lives and everything should be perfect for January, and then the rest of it will look after itself, is just farcical. But every year we see the same thing. So I think
that's the madness about it all. Every single year, the same thing happens.
Yeah.
And it's generally the same people doing the same thing every year.
I'll be honest with you, there's some people in the fitness industry make their year's income and survive off what they get in January. They just hoover up whatever money they can in January. Yeah. That sustains them for kind of July and August when nobody's around because they're on holiday. And then they all kind of start again because they put holiday away. Or that kind of May when they want to get shredded for holiday, whatever it happens to be. But yeah, that January is where the kind of the unscrupulous, unethical people in the world kind of rinse everybody for supplements and fitness equipment and memberships, and then never see anybody in February again. But the successful people realize, again, you look at the TV program, that they all talk about lifestyle change. This is a lifestyle for me. And you're just thinking, are you going to go from what you did, going to McDonald's for breakfast every day, going for Greg's for lunch and sitting around and driving your van around and never doing a day's exercise, to this, I'm walking every day and I'm eating lettuce, and it's too different. It's just too different to say I'm definitely going to do this for the rest of my life. Now, it's a goal to get to, but I don't think we get told a realistic picture in the media, what that journey really, really looks like.
Yeah, I think the habit change has definitely got to be more of a long-term thing, doesn't it? It's got to be a plan for the future. It's something that you're working towards. You can't just go, right, I'm changing it now. And that's what, if they're trying to do it as a full package, that's what happens, isn't it? You're kind of going, right, I'm instantly going to change who I am. You just can't do that. It's got to be something that you bring in. So like you've hit nail ahead there, and you've just got to do it in stages, haven't you? Maybe pick one thing.
Yeah.
You pick your one habit at a time that you're working on, and then maybe in 6 months or maybe a year, you might be closer towards being the, at that point where you want to be, and it's all right. So
as long as you got that, what post for it yesterday, that picture in mind, where you're going.
Yeah.
Have your end goal in mind. You've got to have an image of what you
you've got to know where you're going.
You've got to have an image of what you're wanting to achieve in long term, but you can't get there overnight, can you?
Begin with the end in mind. That's what the quote.
We just talked about, again, just before air, about some of the messages from High Performance podcast about what makes a high performance mindset, and the first thing that come out is hard work and enjoy what you're doing. And if you're trying to upturn your life and change everything about what you're doing, that is never going to be an enjoyable process.
No,
you might
definitely.
like short-term goals. You might like, I've lost 2 inches off my waist this kind of last 2 weeks. But if you don't get any reward from the process of doing it, you're not going to stick with it. And when you change everything, you have all these habits you're trying to get rid of, and you got all these new habits you're trying to get, it's going to be unpleasant. And I think people need to be a bit kinder to themselves, and also more realistic in terms of how much change is needed and how long that change will take. And then they can go, okay, right, I'm going to enjoy this part of the process.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to take a while, but it will be sustainable, as opposed to kind of this false idea that I'm going to change everything in a month, and after this month, what I've done this month will stick with me forevermore, because that ain't going to happen.
No, definitely not. We on that, when we went to High Performance Podcast as well, we'd been down to Waking, we'd listened to a talk from Gaz Banford, SAS, SBS, actually, 18 year in SBS he did. So that was pretty, Roger got him that, he'd done a chat at Academy lads and stuff. That was superb. Really similar. It was basically about mindset. And at the end of the day, when we're talking about changing your habits now, you've got to accept them up here, haven't you? You've got to kind of change your mindset towards where you want to go. And he were talking about all the same things, and he basically just said, he was talking, obviously, with addressing lads, if there's something you want to do, you've got to do it. You've got to take that step. You know, like, you can think about something all day long. You can set goals. You can do what, you know what I mean? But you've got to bring them in, haven't you, to your life? And it were really good. He were really good. It was superb how he explained things. You know, like how he got his point across without just, oh, it's easy. You know, like you've got to be. It were kind of saying, you don't have to be special. You don't have to be special to make it to the top. You've got to accept that things will be tough. And all right, you know what I mean? It might not go your way straight away. We're on about setbacks and stuff, wasn't it? But you've just got to accept that that's life, and you've just got to take these little steps in stages. We're talking about how he went from being a student into Marines, how tough a change that was to his life, and then his next step up. It was only about 4 years at Marines, then he went into SBS after Twin Towers. It was superb how he spoke and put his point across. It was really good. We're actually going to try and book him. We're going to try and get him to come into the gym and do a talk. We're all us lot for all his members. It were great, because I thought what he obviously he's talking about something elite in it. When you're talking about SBS, you think they're just superhuman, don't you? But how he put his point across, I thought it were really like relatable to anybody. I got loads out of it. I was walking away going, oh my God, I need to think about this. You know, like even business wise, I was thinking, we need to plan, we've got to decide where we want to go. When he showed us that quote, begin with the end in mind, it was like, oh my God, we've got to plan, you've got to do this. And it would just change kind of my thought. I haven't stopped thinking about it since.
One of the messages we got from the James Clear, the Atomic Habits book, where a lot of our conversation started around habits, was your habits tell you about your identity. Like how do you identify as yourself, and what does that tell you about your identity? And actually, if you think about, you analyze your current habits now, that tells you about your current identity. And the question you have to yourself is, what identity do I want to have in the future? And then what are those, what current habits have I got now that fit into that, and what ones don't? And that's a bit of a blueprint. And what you're saying there is having a bit of a plan. So if we kind of bring that back into our habits, going, well, what part in my planning process, what I need to think about, how do my current habits fit into that, and do they fit into that?
Yeah.
And do I need to change and replace some of these current habits? So actually, it's really easy in the future to be the person, the identity I want to be, because it's based on habits. So I don't have to think about doing these things anymore. They're going to happen automatically. And I can enjoy the process because it's not a slog or a grind, having to think every day to be somebody I'm not.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of getting towards half an hour now. So we need to basically say what we're going to look at in future episodes. It won't necessarily be next week, but in the future is, well, we talked a lot about today about why habits are important, and the fact that a lot of people need to get rid of old ones and get new ones, is how we go through that process. What does changing habits look like? So things like your environment, things like the models of behavior change, about how do you go about changing your behavior. So I suppose that's where we'll go with this in future weeks. Is
it's quite simple. It could just be as simple as stop buying wine to having this. Make sure you don't have any wine in the house Monday to Friday. If you want to drink on a weekend, you buy your wine on a Friday, so that you're not going and there's just like, I suppose that's the environment thing, in it. You know what I mean? Take yourself out of it. Don't allow yourself that option to pour your drink or get your biscuit with a cup of tea.
Well, there's a classic habit in it. How do people go shopping and actually pre-write a list? Now, how many people go shopping and just put things in their shopping trolley out of habit? They have a route they go down the aisles. They always do the same thing. They always put the same stuff. Not even think about it anymore. Pick up like the biscuit aisle or the chocolate aisle or the booze aisle. They just bang, 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 bang. And they've gone around Asda or Sainsbury's, wherever it is they go, and without really having to think about what's put in their trolley, they've got all these things to take home with them that they don't really want to have in their house. But
exactly.
It's just like, every week we buy the same stuff and I don't have to think about it. Just there you go in the trolley, pay for it, and I'm home. And no thought has been given to it, but yet you've got all the stuff that actually you now have to mentally force yourself not to have.
Yeah. So you've got to take that option away, haven't you? By not having it in. That's quite simple. That's the simplest way to put it. If it comes down to a food thing, but there's lots of different things in there. But yeah, we can go back to it. But I suppose the takeaway message is, like everybody does have these habits. Yeah, some people want to change them. Some people don't. Some people are more than happy. If you do identify that you've got a bit of a shit habit and you want to change it, it's not end of the world. You can change it. There's different ways and there's methods, there's practices that you can put in place to get there. So I think that is definitely what we'll come back to at some point, isn't it?
They've got to know who they want to be.
Yeah.
And what sort of person they want to be in future, and that's how you work towards it. So, and if it means changing habits, then in our future episodes, we'll look at how we can help people change their habits.
Well, great stuff, guys.
Nice one.
I think that's all right. Good stuff. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you've, I hope you've gained a little bit of an insight into your habits. Maybe you didn't even know you had any. You're just thinking you're coasting along, doing what you want, but you don't realise most of the stuff that's going on in there is kind of subconscious, in it, without knowing.
Yeah. So if you do,
go on now.
If you do like the episode, please do like us, share us, subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. Pass it round. We're on Twitter, the Yorkshire Fit Pod on Twitter.
Yeah, Yorkshire Fit Pod.
Yeah. Like us on there, follow us on Twitter, and share the good word.
Cool. Yeah. Nice one. Yeah. Cheers, everybody.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody.